In late summer 2025, a political earthquake from the prairies has forced Canada to confront Western separatism like never before. The winds of change are sweeping across Alberta and Saskatchewan, stirring up a storm of political unrest and a fervent call for independence. The Maverick Party's sudden deregistration wasn't a defeat, it was a calculated move to shift the independence fight to Alberta and Saskatchewan, where the push for sovereignty is now gaining real traction. This strategic withdrawal from the federal stage has emboldened local leaders and activists, who are now more determined than ever to carve out a new path for their provinces. By abandoning the federal stage, WEXIT leaders have declared Ottawa irreparable, focusing instead on building provincial power and autonomy. They argue that the federal government has consistently ignored the unique needs and aspirations of Western Canadians, leaving them no choice but to seek self-determination. With provincial governments lowering barriers to independence referendums, WEXIT has moved from fringe to a real political threat. The movement is no longer just a topic of online forums and social media debates, it has entered the mainstream political discourse, capturing the attention of both supporters and critics. The debate is now in legislatures, not just online forums, marking the most serious challenge to Canadian unity since Quebec's sovereignty movement. Politicians are grappling with the implications of a potential breakup, and the stakes have never been higher. The rest of Canada must now urgently ask, what will it take to keep the country together? As the nation stands at a crossroads, the decisions made in the coming months will shape the future of Canada for generations to come. To truly grasp the current crisis facing Canada, it's essential to understand the roots and reality of Western alienation. This isn't just a passing frustration. It's a deep-seated belief, especially in Alberta and Saskatchewan, that Ottawa not only ignores the West's needs but actively exploits its resources and people. For generations, many in these provinces have felt that their voices are drowned out by the political and economic power of central Canada, leaving them with little say in decisions that shape their future. The West sees itself as the economic engine of the country, driving prosperity through oil, gas, and agriculture. Yet there's a widespread feeling that federal policies, like carbon taxes, pipeline delays, and environmental regulations, punish these vital industries rather than support them. Many Westerners believe that while their hard work fuels the national economy, they're left to bear the brunt of policies crafted far away, with little understanding of local realities. Economic grievances run deep. Wealth generated in the West often flows eastward through taxes and the federal equalization program, which is seen as unfairly redistributing Alberta and Saskatchewan's prosperity to other provinces. This fuels a powerful narrative of injustice and resentment, as many feel their contributions are taken for granted while their own communities struggle with economic uncertainty. But Western alienation isn't just about economics. Culturally, the West's values like rugged individualism, self-reliance, and fiscal conservatism often clash with the more progressive politics of central Canada. Federal laws and decisions can feel imposed, foreign, and even hostile, deepening the sense of being misunderstood and marginalized. This feeling of being governed by a distant, unsympathetic power has been passed down through generations. It's not just a political stance, it's a part of Western identity, shaping how families talk about Ottawa at the dinner table and how communities view their place in Confederation. The desire for greater autonomy or even independence is rooted in this long history of perceived neglect. Every new federal policy that's seen as harmful or dismissive only deepens the wound. Protests, town hall meetings, and political movements have become more common as frustration grows and talk shifts from reform to outright separation. For many, it feels like the only way to protect their way of life is to take control of their own destiny. Western alienation isn't just a political issue, it's an emotional force, a powerful engine driving the WEXIT movement and calls for independence. It's about pride, identity, and the belief that the West deserves a fair say in its own future. Understanding this complex mix of economic, cultural, and historical grievances is key to understanding why, for many in the West, the idea of independence is no longer unthinkable. It's a real and pressing option on the table. Today's separatist surge is rooted in decades of Western protest against Ottawa's overreach. The sense of alienation in the West didn't appear overnight. It's the result of a long history of feeling ignored, misunderstood, and even targeted by federal policies crafted far from the prairies. For many Western Canadians, the relationship with Ottawa has always felt one-sided, with decisions made in the East having profound consequences for lives and livelihoods in the West. The national energy program of the 1980s, seen as economic sabotage by Alberta, left scars that still shape prairie politics. The NEP was more than just a policy, it was a turning point. It slashed oil revenues, cost thousands of jobs, and sent a message that Western resources could be controlled from Ottawa, regardless of local needs or opinions. The bitterness and economic pain lingered for years, fueling a deep distrust of federal intentions. The NEP's legacy is a symbol of federal exploitation, and its memory is invoked whenever Ottawa is seen as threatening Western prosperity. For many, it became a rallying cry, a reminder that the West's interests could be sacrificed for the benefit of others. This sense of injustice has been passed down through generations, shaping the region's political identity and its skepticism toward national unity. The Reform Party's rise in the 1990s was a demand for fairness, not separation, but its failure to achieve real reform deepened Western frustration. Reformers wanted a voice in Ottawa, pushing for policies that reflected Western values and priorities. But as the party struggled to make lasting change, many supporters felt their hopes for a more balanced federation slipping away. The dream of a Triple-E Senate and equal representation was never realized, reinforcing the belief that change from within is impossible. Western Canadians watched as their calls for reform were sidelined, and the promise of a more equitable system faded. This disappointment only deepened the sense of exclusion and powerlessness. The Reform Party's evolution into the Conservatives left many feeling abandoned. As the party merged and shifted its focus, some Westerners felt their unique concerns were once again lost in the shuffle of national politics. The hope that a Western-based party could bring real change seemed to vanish. That's why the West's cry has shifted from "let us in" to "let us out." Today, the frustration and disillusionment have reached a boiling point, with more voices than ever calling for a new path. One that puts Western interests first, even if it means breaking away from the rest of Canada. The Maverick Party, born from WEXIT Canada, was the latest attempt to give Western separatism a federal voice. Despite its bold platform, the party struggled to win votes, as most Westerners stuck with the Conservatives for pragmatic reasons. In 2025, Elections Canada deregistered Maverick for financial non-compliance, ending its federal run. For critics, this proved separatism was fringe. For supporters, it was a wake-up call. Maverick's end wasn't failure, it was a pivot. Leaders realized fighting in Ottawa was futile. The real battle would be in provincial legislatures. The energy and strategy shifted home, where provinces hold the power to challenge Confederation. The federal phase is over. The WEXIT movement is now a serious provincial project. The WEXIT movement now rallies around a clear ultimatum: fix it or WEXIT. Fix it is a final plea for real reform, repealing federal overreach, overhauling equalization, and reviving the dream of a Triple-E Senate. Many in the West see this as Canada's last chance to prove Confederation can work for everyone, but a growing number believe reform is impossible, citing decades of resistance from central Canada. For them, WEXIT, full independence, is the only path left. The slogan isn't just rhetoric, it's the framework guiding provincial negotiations and policy. Canada now faces a stark choice: fix the Federation, or risk its breakup. With Maverick gone, Alberta and Saskatchewan have become the heart of WEXIT, turning separatism from protest to policy. Alberta's government has made it easier to trigger an independence referendum, signaling that sovereignty is a real option. Saskatchewan is asserting its rights too, especially on energy and agriculture, and watching Alberta's moves closely. The two provinces are forming a united front, demanding more autonomy and threatening separation if ignored. This provincial shift gives WEXIT unprecedented legitimacy and power. Unlike past efforts, this movement uses the machinery of government to challenge Ottawa directly. The battle for the West is now being led from the provincial capitals. As WEXIT gains steam, it risks being derailed by fringe ideas, like joining the United States, that most see as reckless and unrealistic. Mainstream leaders warn that such talk undermines the movement's credibility and bargaining power. The US is no safe haven, and annexation would likely leave the West with less power, not more. That's why experienced voices urge calm, patience, and strategic planning. The movement's success depends on being seen as rational and deliberate, not reactionary. Building a broad coalition requires focus on achievable, provincially led steps. The message: stay the course, avoid distractions, and keep the movement credible. The fate of WEXIT and Canada now hinges on leadership and legitimacy. Only respected, experienced leaders like Premiers Danielle Smith and Scott Moe can guide the movement through the coming constitutional storm. They must unite the West with a clear vision and credible plan, answering tough questions about economics, defense, and what independence would mean. For Ottawa, ignoring Western grievances is no longer an option. The provincial pivot has changed the game. Canada faces a defining moment: negotiate real reform, or brace for escalating constitutional battles and possible separation. The next chapter is being written now, in prairie legislatures and town halls. Whether Canada stays together or splits apart, the status quo is over. The future is unwritten, and the choices made now will shape the nation for generations.